at the same time that we're all being worked by this system, and I don't necessarily think of this as a grand conspiracy. I just think of it as the way the market moves. But I really think everybody can feel it, right? You just can sense this dissatisfaction in people around that stuff. The algorithm is getting people down. And I feel like there's an allergic reaction that people are kind of developing to this stuff that hasn't metastasized to regulation yet, but I feel like it's certainly there culturally. And like kids right now are the term that people are more using for AI and for older people who over rely on it is clanker.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Anyway, welcome to Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. With us now is Jacob Wirt, author of recent book, The Loop, How Technology is Creating a World Without Choices. Little ominous title there, Jacob. Like you've been a reporter, a journalist, your entire life, career, many different news organizations. I thought the whole purpose of technology was to increase our choices, to make our lives richer, to give us opportunities that we never had before.
You know, it's funny, Kerry. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. There are these moments, and I feel like I should coin a phrase for these moments where there's this intermediary moment where technology does tend to do that, right? Where it has in the past done that. I was thinking, I was around for the early days of the internet when it was still migrating from being an entirely academic, plaything to something that anybody with a dial-up connection could start to play around with. And that was the early days of bloggers and the rest of it. And suddenly you're in this world where, there really was this promise of like, wow, the information of the world at your fingertips. And I remember at that time thinking to myself, man, when I have kids, they're going to be in this position to just develop any taste they want in any form of entertainment. They're going to have, really specific taste in, Kurdish folk music or, tango, or who knows what they're going to be into because they're going to have any choice they possibly want, right? Today, I just recently took a trip to Portugal. And when I go, it used to be that when I would go on trips, I always want to bring back what kids are wearing for my kids to sort of point it out to them, and I'm on the subway in Lisbon and I'm looking around and every single one of those kids is wearing exactly the same thing as my kids wear back at home. And that's the TikTok effect, right? Because the trends are being consolidated and commercialized so quickly now that it's not cool to be into Kurdish folk music. There's I'm sure a corner of the internet for everything. And I've talked to lots of people for whom it is a place to curate your own tastes. But if you go with the flow of modern technology and where it's pushing us, it doesn't let kids develop their own taste and stuff. It tries to shape their taste wherever it can. And that's why I ended up writing The Loop, was this worry I had that there's huge behavioral science findings over the last 50 or 60 years that are showing us just how shapeable we are. And then at the same time, I was, this was pre-transformer models, pre-ChatGPT. I was looking at all these companies who were using early machine learning models to try to spot the patterns in people's behavior and shape those patterns wherever they could. And I just thought, there's a real problem coming here. And so I wrote the book. And I published it, and literally 9 months later, ChatGPT came out, and I've been spending the last few years just watching my thesis come to life, basically. And I'll tell you, Kerry, it's one thing, you think you want to be right when you write a book, but this is an instance in which I wish I had not been as right.
Yeah, so interesting because, I got like a line of t-shirts that I just created using the AI, and my biggest hit is, don't let the algorithm get you down.
Right. I mean, this is the thing, is that at the same time that we're all being worked by this system, and I don't necessarily think of this as a grand conspiracy. I just think of it as the way the market moves. But I really think everybody can feel it, right? You just can sense this dissatisfaction in people around that stuff. The algorithm is getting people down. And I feel like there's an allergic reaction that people are kind of developing to this stuff that hasn't metastasized to regulation yet, but I feel like it's certainly there culturally. And like kids right now are the term that people are more using for AI and for older people who over rely on it is clanker. So when a piece of AI makes something people think is stupid, they're like, oh, stupid clanker, don't do that. Or fake videos of somebody that
Guilty.
Like, oh, look at this clanker. Oh yeah, totally. Right. And so I feel like there's something great in kids that they're seeing this clearly,
I love it. Yeah. It's, kids don't do homework anymore. And like the thing is, when you work with the AI, it adapts to you and speaks in your voice. There's virtually no way that it can be detected. And then you could put it through multiple AIs called stacking, and no one will ever be able to figure it out.
That's right. Which is why you have teachers having to go back to 19th century techniques like having you write it out in longhand in class, right? They can't even take advantage of this technology in any sort of productive way. They have to just like go back to like lamplight kind of teaching techniques.
Yeah. And look, they stopped teaching cursive writing in school like 20 years ago. So what the heck is the point of all this?
Right. Right.
They should have never done that. Just like they shouldn't have allowed calculators into the classroom. But they didn't consult me, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know they didn't call either of us. I don't know why that was.
It's so obvious.
I worry a lot about this tendency that we've had. I was just but I'm curious what your opinion is about this. I was just on this podcast the other day with a couple of people who are former Uber and former Google people, and the former Uber guy, a guy named Chris Saad, very angry at the whole notion that I was proposing, which is that we should have been more careful and that we should in general be more careful. And, this notion, for instance, that before releasing a large language model, you should have had a large language model detector, right? You shouldn't have put it out there until we could have reliably detected what's AI generated. And it's the kind of thing that made him crazy. He just was so upset at that notion. He said, the whole point of innovation is to move fast, break things, and figure it out later. That's how we get great ideas, and he's just absolutely, really, he was just fuming about this concept. And I just kept trying to say, but shouldn't there be a limit here? Shouldn't there be some consideration ahead of time? And he did not seem to feel that way. And I think that his opinion is not uncommon. And I wonder what you think about that.
I used to have that same opinion, but the problem is every technology can be used for evil. It's going to be applied. And
what for you was the turning point? When did what technology or what moment made you reconsider that, do you think?
I think when I look at modern weaponry and it's got all these chips in it, and, it just really said, we're getting like too far ahead here. I feel like it's out of control. And now that the AI is designing the successive hardware generations, you see it, NVIDIA, their AI is designing those chips. No human can do it. And then Tesla, that company is completely AI generated. Their products are being generated, maybe not wholly, but more by the AI than by humans. And, it's like the AI has to fake empathy.
Oh, yeah.
Humans either have it or they don't. But, it just seemed to me that, but the toothpaste is out of the tube, or as I like to say, the genie is out of the toothpaste tube, and there's no putting it back.
I don't know. I hear so many people say that, but I have to say, like, Kerry, we're really good at putting toothpaste in tubes. Like we as a country, we do that pretty well. Like you and I would be sitting here smoking cigarettes together if it weren't for
Mm-hmm.
People thinking it through, and people hate to hear that comparison. They think, oh, well, cigarettes is different, very different. And I think, I don't know, man, like they
Definitely not.
They were bad for us. They felt really good to use. They were you literally couldn't go anywhere without smoking. It was in every movie plot, airplanes everywhere. And in the same, this is the thing that bothers me about how we think about AI is what I keep trying to remind people is like, it's not going to feel good to make the right choice around this technology. It's going to feel bad. It's going to feel like you don't want to do it, to use this stuff less or any of that thing. And that's the thing with cigarettes. If you ask somebody in 1957, hey, do you like smoking? They'd say, I love smoking. It feels great. And it's not until 1965 that they start to regulate against it. And you had to do it on the basis of what we could see empirically was happening to people's bodies. And in this case, I think we're going to see empirically what's happening to people's brains. And there's going to have to be a shift, but it's not going to come from people just saying, no, I'm going to quit smoking on my own,
Yeah, it's one of those things where the benefits are so great, though. And
I know. That is the argument that I keep hearing, right? The benefit, the democratizing of superpowers is how people describe it, right? And I get it. I hear that. But I just feel like, I don't know, I had a piece up on the ripcurrent.com about just give it to scientists for a while. Like, let's give it to people whose job it is to make good use of it. Let's not use it to make like porn girlfriends yet. Let's not use it to do this other crap yet. Let's just give it to like climate scientists, social scientists. Like, let's let them use it for 5 years. Then the rest of us can get a license to do it. But I just think, man, we're moving too fast, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going at such a speed. There isn't a feedback loop built into this to actually judge the impact on society. And is it something we should put limits on? And we're counting on the companies peddling it to actually put the limits on it.
Right.
And that's like expecting big pharma to actually want to cure you.
That's right. That's the car companies are going to do the seatbelts on their own, and Ralph Nader never had to get involved. That's exactly right. I think that's right. I mean, you mentioned the title of my book, and it is a dark setup, right? The loop, how AI is creating a world without choices, but the other part of that is and how to fight back. And I would argue that there are some things coming that I do feel like, even though this thing moves really fast, there is we've talked already about the cultural allergy that I think we're seeing. Mm-hmm. I'm also seeing places in which, I think one of the big things is going to be, in this country, we're very good at regulating about death, and we're good at regulating about financial loss. We're not great at other forms of harm, right? And even addiction, we don't tend to regulate well. We do okay, but not great. We are legalizing gambling across the country on your phone. Like there's all kinds of places in which we really are happy to let people, burn themselves on the fire. But I do think that more and more you're seeing in court places where companies are beginning to recognize, we actually have some liability here. And at the very least, they're starting to settle. So I've been covering a lot of these social casino games. These are simulators online that simulate casino games, blackjack and so forth. And people are increasingly beginning to sue because huge numbers of people are losing their life savings to these games. It costs money to play, but you can win no real money back. So it's the definition of a loser's game.
Yeah.
And it's typically like elderly folks, a lot of elderly women that get ensnared by this stuff, right? And initially they would just get laughed out of court. But now class actions are starting to go forward that are succeeding, at least in scoring big settlements, like $500 million settlements, because you can tell that these companies don't want to reveal the mechanism. They don't want to go through discovery. And
exactly.
In early 2026, we're going to see two big court cases against the social media giants that I think are also going to show that you're going to get discovery. This is going to Zuckerberg and Mosseri are going to have to go on the stand. And I think we're going to start to see the mechanism by which companies are messing with our choices and I like to believe that there is an era coming when it's life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and something about agency. That there's going to be something about being free to make your own choices. There's a Duke Law researcher named Nita Farahani who calls it cognitive liberty. And I like to think that we're on a path toward, at the very least, winning legal judgments and some settlements on that basis. And I hope that can somehow change things.
And I'm going to take this opportunity to mention what I was alluding to before, but sovereignty is really what we're talking about.
That's the world.
Over
That's
yourself.
the world. That's right.
And look, my channel here on this site that you're going to be watching this, I don't want to name the name because then the algorithm will pin it and further suppress it. I've been suppressed for 13 years because some professor once upon a time came up with a list of 140 sites that she determined were disinformation or misinformation. And finally, I just said, I'm not taking it anymore. And I sent off letters, physical. You want to get a response? Don't send an email. Send a letter that somebody has to tear open and actually scan into the thing to read it. And they let one of my videos go. A guest I had on for 13 years, 24 interviews, never did more than 1,000 to 9,000 views. The one time they let it go, I got 150,000 views, 2,600 new subscribers, and over $1,000 in revenue. So that's proof. It's smoking gun because it happened within days after my letters. They immediately rolled back the algorithm, so I never had another one of those happen again. And I've got the proof because AI helped me prove exactly what they're doing. I have 6 AIs. So I'm starting an action down here in Florida because, like you said, put Zuckerberg there, put Sundar there, and put the other people there because they're all doing it, even though now they say they're not doing it by viewpoint, politics, whatever. My big crime is that I'm into Austrian economics, free market economics, and believe in protecting your wealth with gold and silver. That's what their own AI told me. That's my crime. And I feel like Kafka GPT because I've been accused of a crime that I don't know what it was, and I'm being punished for it without ever having had a trial or face any allegations.
Well, and this is going to be the big quote, like if what I'm describing comes to pass, it's going to be a huge controversy and a huge point of debate because there's for every instance in which, somebody is clearly being manipulated by, let's say, a big casino company, there's going to be these much squishier places, right? And there's going to be this gray area that we're going to have to sort out in which there's your instance, but then there's, I don't know, Andrew Tate, right? Who I would argue is doing true damage to the minds of young people, right? Young men. And so how are we going to adjudicate that? I don't know. Right. And you look at China, which has, one of the things that bothers me the most about the rhetoric that we follow here in this country about China and needing to compete with them in AI is that somehow they don't regulate, which is crazy to me. That's the most regulated. It's crazy how much they regulate. Like if you are the CEO of an AI company and the AI is used to make fun of Xi Jinping, you, the CEO, are personally liable for that. It's not even, not only do they not have a Section 230, that CEO goes to jail, right? So to my mind, like the regulation is enormous. On the other, and I think so. In my weaker moments, I think, well, maybe that's what kind of the thing we need is that kind of liability. But then I also go, well, yeah, but then at the same time, they, something like DeepSeek, the AI model that they made on the cheap there, has to conform to communist central authority teachings, right? Socialist teachings. And so I don't know how to sort this out. Yeah, that's right.
Doomed for that reason, because AI has to function on truth. And when you give it these conflicting missions, it starts hallucinating and, try looking up Tiananmen Square, and they'll have a picture with a May Day parade there. It's not going to mention anything about the 10,000 people they just slaughtered back whenever that was. I don't remember. So long ago in the 80s. And, the revisionist history and all that. So it's definitely problematical. But on the other hand, so our awareness has been outstripped by the ability of bad actors to take advantage of our biomechanical, biochemical makeup. Is what we're talking about is the dopamine loop. These dating apps. Do you think dating apps really want you to find your true love?
Right.
No, they want you to become just like Big Pharma. They want you to become a lifetime subscriber. And I wrote a book, just so you know, under a pseudonym, Johnny Depp, The Complete Guide to Dating App Hacks. And basically it's like, originally the algorithm, I used to work for the algorithm, but now the algorithm works for me. I don't pay for any of them, and it keeps sending me and sending me and sending me. So you can manipulate it, but you got to be aware that it's happening. These people like who become compulsive online gamblers, it's just like drugs, right? It's just like crack. It's the dopamine loop. And, when we were growing up, we didn't know anything about neurotransmitters, serotonin, and all the others.
We did know to prosecute drug dealers.
Yeah.
But we didn't know the mechanism as well as we do now. That's right.
We prosecute them, but then we have three-letter agencies that are among the biggest smugglers of drugs in the world. So it's complicated. So in any event, when we're moving ahead, you and I have this conversation in 5 years, neither of us are doing any work anymore because the bots are all doing it in our names. Where are we going to be here, Jacob?
I know. Well, this is the big question, right? I mean, we're there's this quote from Dario Amodei, the founder of Anthropic, in which he says that we're going to, that he says he literally says out loud, you should be worried about what we are making. He told Axios. And he said, we could cure cancer, we could create enormous wealth, and 20% of people could be out of work. And I know you think that's a conservative estimate, right? It could be vastly more than that. I mean, at the same time, you've got Sam Altman saying on a podcast last year that he and his tech CEO buddies have a bet going about who's going to have the first $1 billion one-person company, right? And that's another one where I just think, well, who's going to work for? How are we going to feed our families if a single person controls that percentage of the GDP? And so I really do think we're in a place where we're going to have to get to we're very quickly going to have to get to a place where we're going to have to reassess the value of human beings, because it used to be that you assessed them on their productivity, and their contribution to GDP. And now I really don't know. I think Andrew Yang turns out to have been kind of ahead of his time on what he was thinking about. And
basically.
Now
it's coming
there.
It's coming. There's no choice. They either have to start a war to get rid of a bunch of people, like 80%, or they're going to have to pay them. But on the other hand, Elon Musk warned about it too, like 5-6 years ago. You don't hear him talking about it anymore, that AI was the greatest threat to humanity around. And, that was really before ChatGPT came out, before the others. I think it's a challenge. But on the other hand, the current economic system has created huge injustices, imbalances, incorrect valuations between relative work. Who can say that the guy who's sweeping the airport bathroom is not as valuable as some performer on stage that's getting paid tens of millions?
I mean, teachers, right? Like a preschool teacher. Why aren't they making the same as a doctor? It is absolutely outrageous, right? And yet, we're going to enter this. For me, I just worry about I'm trying to focus on like one day at a time. And one of the things that I think is coming, for instance, I had somebody, a very smart thinker about this named Molly Kinder, who's at the Brookings Institute. She's been talking a lot about how she worries that AI is going to be is going to do to non-college educated women what outsourcing offshore did to non-college educated men in the United States. Because she says that, women with a high school education, if they needed a secure middle-class existence, then they got into clerical work, bookkeeping, admin, all of that is
Telephone operator.
Well, right, exactly. That's all gone. And the wiping out of those jobs, which is absolutely what these folks are all on a path to do, is a huge problem. I mean, in some countries, right, India has outlawed self-driving vehicles because a huge percentage of men in that country make their living as professional drivers, right? They recognize, like, there is even though this thing could work, we aren't going to let it go forward because of the destabilizing effect it's going to have on this country. And we just aren't there yet, I think, as a nation. No.
And you mentioned driving. The largest job category in the United States is driver, over 10 million people. And that's truck drivers, limo drivers.
I don't think I realized that. Wow. Right.
So that's 10 million people. And I'm telling you, we're maybe 6 months to a year away from it.
Right.
Maybe a little more. It's
and
happening.
And the incredible, I mean, as researcher after researcher will tell you, there is no more dangerous thing than a young, unemployed generation. Like there is,
I've seen it,
especially of men, right? It is an incredibly dangerous and destructive force.
Yeah. So we're back to like Clockwork Orange and 1984. And I know, what was the other one? I can't even remember.
Right. Exactly. I mean, but there are these examples in which people really have taken a forward-looking view and said, okay, we're going to change this around. Germany has an incredible apprenticeship program for young people to get into chips and the rest of it. There's a reason that, I mean, if you look at like the soccer leagues in those countries, the development process, the development league, I mean, there's a reason that a country of only 80 million people is like a world conquering dominant force in soccer. Yeah. One of the reasons is every town has a development league, that is funded by, a common pool of money. And I think in this country, this idea that like bootstraps are going to get us there, we're about to find out that is not true. And we're going to need a whole other development system. And I don't know what it's going to be, but if we don't get back into a world of apprenticeships and residencies or whatever we want to call it, I think we're going to be in real trouble real quick.
Agreed. So again, the book is The Loop: How AI is Creating a World Without Choices and How to Fight Back. It's on Amazon. I just ordered a copy of it myself. Just to let you know, it's on sale 37% off, at least on my thing here. Sorry, you're not going to get your fair royalty.
Oh, that's all right. I'll take it.
$12.61.
I don't even feel like you have to read it. Just buy it. That's all I care about.
Hey, well, that's it. It'll look great on your bookshelf.
Yeah, there you go.
I try to read every book I buy because I feel like I'm into optimization, being a good steward of assets, not wasting. But it's impossible to keep up with everything.
Right.
And of course, your website here, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that, is theripcurrent.com. See all the latest episodes. And if you got a question for Jacob, myself, KL@KerryLutz.com. Our site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, KerryLutz.com. They both take you to my Substack. Jacob, been a pleasure. I'm really happy we connected. Let's do this again.
Cheers. Thanks, Kerry. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.